In this video, we'll be learning how to solve problems involving the calculation of percentages and the use of percentages for comparison. On your worksheet, we're going to be recapping on how to find different percentages of amounts. We're going to be ordering values. We're going to be looking at how we can use just 10% and 50% to find any other percentage. And then we're going to be applying our understanding of finding percentages to some shapes. Let's recap. 10%, what does it mean? And how do you find it? This is a fact that you should learn, and you should learn it off by heart. To find 10%, you simply divide by 10. This is a really useful trick. So if you haven't learnt this off by heart, make it a priority to know that when you find 10%, you simply divide by 10. Our next one, 1%. If you can find 10%, you should be able to find 1%. Now to find 1%, you can either divide by 100, because 1% means 1 out of 100. So you divide by 100, or you can find the 10% by dividing by 10, and then divide by 10 again, because 1 is 10 times smaller than 10. 50%. Now this one you should definitely learn. 50% is the same as a half. So to find 50% of anything, you just halve it, or you divide by 2. 25%, another fact that you should know off by heart. Do you recognise what fraction is equivalent to 25%? Do you know the link between 25% and 50%? Well, 25% is half of 50%. It's half of your half, and half of a half is a quarter. So you need to learn that 25% is the equivalent to 1/4. So to find 25%, you can simply divide by 4, or you could halve, then halve again. So find your 50%, then halve it again to find your 25%. 75% is another percentage fact that you should learn off by heart. Have you seen any links between the percentages we've already looked at? Well, 75% is made up of that 50% and that 25%. And 75% is equal to 3/4. So to find 75%, you could divide by 4, so you could find your quarter, find your 25%, and then find 3 lots of that. So divide by 4, then multiply by 3, which is the same as finding 3/4 of something. You divide by the denominator and multiply by the numerator. Or you could find your 50% and find your 25% and add them together, and that will give you your 75%. So using those clues, we're going to look at how we put these values into order, from smallest to biggest. It is really important with these types of questions on your paper that you check the order, that you put them in smallest to biggest, if that's what it's asking, and not putting it in from biggest to smallest. That might sound silly, but it is a very common error. So always check that you've put it in the order that they want you to. So let's work through these questions and how we can apply those clues. So if you want to, you could pause the page here, use these clues to find A, B, C, D, E and F, and then put them in order. When you put them in order, write the letters into the boxes. Or if you stay with me, I'm going to go through each one individually. But if you think you can give it a go first before you continue the video. So to find 10% of something, you simply divide by 10. Now to divide by 10, you need to have a good understanding of the place value of each digit. So I'm just going to write in my thousands, hundreds, tens and ones, or you might learn them as units. And in another colour, I'm going to write in my number. 1,560. Just going to continue. My place value chart would go on to tenths, hundredths, and thousands. Tenths, hundredths and thousandths. This would be a decimal point. If I divide by 10, my number gets smaller. If my number gets smaller, it's going to move this way. And when I divide by 10, I move it one space to the right. So each digit will move along. This 1 in my 1,000 column now goes into my 100. The 5 in my 100 column now goes into the 10 column. The 6 in my 10 column now is a 1 or a unit. And my 0 goes here. Now I don't actually need that 0, but it's still correct like that. But if I've got a decimal point and then it's just all zeros, then I don't actually need it. So 10% of 1,560 is 156. So to find 25% of something, I can either divide it by 4 or I can halve it and halve again. Both ways work. So let's look at dividing it by 4. I might want to use a bus stop. 4 into 6 goes once. There's a remainder of 2. 4 into 20 goes 5 times, no remainder, and 4 doesn't go into 0. So my answer is 150. Or if I halved it and halved it again, I could halve my 600 is 300, half my 300 is 150. %20 of 800. Now, how do I find 20%? What clues did I have on that front page that would help me to find 20%? Well, if I can find 10%, how will that help me find 20%? Now, to find 20%, I divide by 10. And remember, to divide by 10, each digit moves along to the right by one space. So 10% is 80. How could I use my 10% to find 20%? Well, I can multiply that by 2, or I could just write out another 10%. These add to 20%, and these are going to add to my answer. 80 and 80 is 160. If you haven't given any of this a go by yourself yet, then I recommend this is the time to have a go at the other ones by yourself. 75% of 180. Remember, 75% is the same as 3/4. So you could divide by 4, then multiply by 3, which is the same as finding 3/4 of 180. To find a fraction of an amount, you divide by the denominator, multiply by the numerator. Or you could find 50% and then 25% and then add these two together. So I'm going to go through all of the different ways actually. So 3/4 of 180. So we could divide by 4 first. 4 into 1 doesn't go. 4 into 18 goes 4 times. A remainder of 2. And 4 into 20 goes 5 times. So that's 1/4. And now I need to multiply this by the numerator 3. So 45 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So I've got my answer here. That's one way to do it. Let's look at the other ways. Let's find 50%. So 50% of 180, well, I'm just halving it, so it's 90. And 25% of 180 is just half of my 50%. So I can divide 180 by 4, or I can just halve my 90, which is 45. And then these add up to 75%. So these will add up to my answer. 0 and 5 is 5. 9 and 4 is 13. It's the same answer. Or I could find 10%. 10% of 180 is 18. So 70% of 180, I need to multiply that. I need to find 7 lots, don't I, of 10%. So I'd need to do 18 times 7. 8 times 7 is 56. 1 times 7 is 7, plus 5 is 12. 126. 126. And 5% I could find by halving my 10%. If 10% is 18, then 9 will be 5%, and now I add them up. I don't want that one. I only want my 70% and my 5%. 6 plus 9 is 15, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 1 plus nothing is 1. It's the same answer. Every method gets you to the same answer. You need to do the method that you feel most secure with. 50% of 340. So you're simply halving, okay? If you haven't got good strategies for halving, I'm going to show you a couple. My 340, I might separate into a 300 and a 40, and then halve each bit. Half of 40 is 20, half of 300 is 150. 150 and 20 is 170. So you might do something like that. Or to remember that halving something just means to divide it by 2. 2 into 3 goes once with a remainder of 1. 2 into 14 goes 7 times, and 2 does not go into 0, so it's 170. So your answer to this one is 170. And finally, 90% of 200. Now I've got my 10% up here, and there's 2 different ways I could use this. And there are other ways actually. I could find 50% and then 40%. So if I find 10% first of all, I divide by 10. So 10% of 200 is 20. If I know what 10% is, how can I use that to find 90%? Well, I can either times this by 9, times this by 9, or I could take my 200, which is 100%, and take away my 10%. 100 take away 10% is going to equal 90%. Both ways would work. So 200 take away 20 is 180, and 20 times 9 is 180. So both those ways would work. Okay. You might have, I mentioned earlier, you might have wanted to do 50%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. You might have wanted to do 4 lots of 10%. 50% of 200, half of 200 is 100. 10% of 200 is 20. So these are all 20s. You might have wanted to do it like that. All of this adds up to 90. All of that adds up to 0. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 1. It all gets to the same answer. So think about just those, how to find 10%, how to find 50%, 25%, 75%. All of those can help you to find other percentages if you just know those ones off by heart. For this activity, we are looking specifically at how knowing 10% and 50% can help you find any other percentage. And then we're going to answer some questions. So here we have an example similar to the ones on your worksheet. In the middle, I have my starting number, 480. Above it, I have 10%, which is this number divided by 10. And below it, I have 50%, which is this number halved. I'm going to demonstrate how you can use just knowing 10% and 50% to help find all the other percentages. So we're going to see how all the different percentage facts link. Okay, firstly, let's go from our 10% to 5%. If I know what 10% is, to find 5%, I simply need to just halve my 10% number, because 5% is half of 10%. 5 is half of 10. So if I know my 10%, I can halve it, which is 24. 5 is half of 10, so 5% will be half of the 10%. Now to find 15%, can you see the link? I've got 10% and I've got 5%. If I just add these two together, 10 plus 5 makes 15. That means the answer in this box plus the answer in this box will give me the answer for this box. So 48 and 24 is 72. Okay, let's go back to my 10%. I've got an arrow going down here. How do you think 10% links to 20%? Well, 20% is double 10%. Just like we halved for the 5%, we're going to now double for our 20%. 2 lots of 10% makes 20%, so 2 lots of our 48 will make 20% answer, which is 96. So now I can see that from my 20% I've got some different links. Let's look at my 30% here. How can I use the clues I already have to find 30%? There's a few things. I could double my 15% because double 15 is 30, or I could add my 10 and my 20%. If you can't do it mentally, then add it up using a written method. 8 plus 6 is 14, 4 and 9 is 13, and the 1 is 14. How will I find my 40%? How is it linked to the 10% or to the 20%? I could take this number, my 10, and times it by 4, because 10 times 4 is 40. Or I could just double my 20% number. So if I take my 96 and multiply it by 2, 6 times 2 is 12, 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. I have my 40%. Now to find my 60%, I could add 50% and 10%. I could add 40% and 20%. I could multiply 20% by 3. I could multiply 10% by 6. I could double my 144. I could double my 30%. Either one of these will work because they are combining percentages to make this percentage. Are you starting to see how all of these percentages link? So I'm going to add my 50% and my 10%. 240 and 48 makes 288. And I can see that this is double this. Double my 100 is 200, double my 44 is 88. Let's go to this side now. How does 25% link to 50%? Remember, 50% is a half and 25% is a quarter. 25% is half of the 50%. A quarter is half of a half. So I'm taking this number and I'm simply halving it again, which is 120. If I went from my original number straight to 25%, I could halve it, then halve it again, or divide it by 4. Now, if I know my 50% and my 25%, this helps me with my 75% because I simply add these two together. 50 and 25 make 75. 1 half and 1 quarter make 3 quarters. 1 half is equal to 2 quarters. 2 quarters and 1 quarter makes 3 quarters. So if I add these together, I have 360. Okay, let's go back up to the top. If I know 10%, can I use that to find 1%? Remember previously we talked about finding 1% was to divide by 100. So I divide my 480 by 100, or I divide it by 10 and divide that number by 10, which might be easier to do. You do what works for you. It will both get you to the same answer. So I'm going to go from my 10% and divide by 10. So each digit moves 1 space to the right. That becomes 4.8. Now if I know my 1%, I'll know my 2%, because it's going to be 2 lots of 1%, so I'm just doubling it. Or if you look at your 20%, 2 is 10 times smaller than 20%, so it's going to be 10 times smaller than this. So it's 9.6, which is double 4.8, or 10 times smaller than 20%. To find my 3%, I add these two together. So let's add them up. 4.8, 9.6. 8 plus 6 is 14. Put my decimal point in and carry my 1. 4 plus 9 is 13, plus my 1. Plus my 1 is 14. So it's 14.4. And if you cross-reference this 3% against your 30%, you'll see that 14.4 is 10 times smaller than 144. And finally, how would we use all the clues we've got to find 4%? Well, I could use my 40% and divide it by 10, or I could use my 2% and double it, or I could use my 1% and times it by 4. I'm actually going to have a go at multiplying my 1% by 4. If you've watched our video on multiplying whole numbers by numbers with 1 decimal place, you'll know that we're going to ignore this decimal point. 8 times 4 is 32. 4 times 4 is 16, plus my 3 is 19. I then go back to my question. I have 1 digit after a decimal point, so I count in 1 place to put my decimal point. It's 19.2, which I can see is this divided by 10. And that's how we use our 10% and 50% to find all the other percentages. Now on your worksheet, you've got a similar activity to do with a different number, and then down the side you have percentages that you need to find. So for example, if I was asked to find 18%, I would use what clues I've got. So I'd maybe find my 15% and then my 3%. If I was asked to find 18%. My 15% is 72, my 3% is 14.4. I would then add these up. If I was asked to find, for example, 79%, I'd need to look at my grid and think, what's the best way to do it? Well, I could use my 75%, which is 360, and I could use my 4%, which is 19.2. So you're looking at the clues you've got and using them to find out any percentage. Good luck with that activity. In this activity, you're going to be writing the percentage of black tiles in each of the shapes. Let's work through an example together. So you need to look at what you have. How many black tiles are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It might sound obvious, but it's really good habit to make sure that you count them methodically. Don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because it's easy to lose track. So either count down in columns, or count across in rows, or even tick as you go. But whatever you do, make sure you keep track of what you're counting. So I have 9 black tiles. Now to be able to write that as a percentage, I need to know what it's out of. So first of all, I'm going to find the fraction. So to find the fraction, I've got 9 black out of how many altogether? So I could count each square individually, or I could just count how many rows and how many columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can multiply my 5 by 5, which is 25, to figure out how many squares there are total. So in this shape, I have 9 black tiles out of 25. Now percentages are fractions out of 100. So I need to scale this up. What do I need to scale my 25 up by to get to 100? How many 25s fit in 100? Well, it's 4. If you remember that 25% is a quarter, you'll remember that 4 lots of 25 and 25 lots of 4 fit in 100. So if I've multiplied my denominator by 4, I need to do the same to my numerator. 9 times 4 is 36. So I've represented this picture. I've represented the number of black tiles in this picture in a fraction, and I've then found the equivalent so that I can change it to a percentage. Once I know what it is out of 100, I know the percentage. So 9/25 is 36%. In this picture, 36% of the tiles are black. If you're still not sure, I'm going to work through your examples with you. If you are happy that you know what you're doing, pause and skip this part because I will be working through your questions now. Okay, so the first thing is we count how many black. And I'm going to work down in columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12. 12 out of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So my fraction of black tiles is 12/25. But I want to know what it is out of 100 because I want to know the percentage. How many times does 25 fit in 100? It fits in 4 times. So I need to do the same to the top. So 12 times 4 is 48. The answer to my first one is 48%. So have a go at the other ones on your sheet now. Do what I did. First of all, write down how many black there are. Then you write down what the total is. That gives you your initial fraction. You then need to scale your fraction so that it becomes a fraction out of 100. Once you've got your denominator as 100, your numerator is your percentage. Remember, percent means per 100. Percent literally means out of 100. So whatever your numbers are at the top of your 100 is your percentage answer. Give those a go. So well done, you've now completed the video and the activities where we have been learning to solve problems involving the calculation of percentages and the use of percentages for comparison. I cannot stress enough how important it is to learn your percentages. Know off by heart what 10%, 25%, 50% and 75% mean and how to find them. Also how to find 1%. Practice that spider diagram that we did where starting from 10% to 50% it linked off to different facts. You can give yourselves numbers and practice that skill, but if you know how to find percentages it will really help you with so many of your questions, and it's a skill that you will still need when you're in Key Stage 3 and even in your GCSEs. So once you're confident with that skill, print off the past SATs questions and you can see how this type of math skill has been tested in previous papers. Good luck.